Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking a really energetic, data-driven look at what is arguably the most fiercely debated topic of our entire decade. We're talking about the future of human work. With unprecedented advancements in artificial intelligence seemingly happening every single week, the absolute burning question on everyone's mind is how this is actually going to transform the global labor market. So, let's get right to it.
Okay, let's dive into this. On one extreme, we've got the ultimate doomer thesis. Experts like Dr. Roman Yampolevsky argue that artificial general intelligence, AGI, could arrive as early as 2027. His projection is that systems capable of totally outperforming humans across cognitive tasks will emerge, and shortly after that, physical labor gets automated too. That leads to this staggering hypothetical scenario of 99% unemployment. I mean, it sounds straight out of a sci-fi movie, right?
But we can abruptly pivot to the antithesis here. Top tech investors, like the folks over at Andreessen Horowitz, view this whole panic as just bad economics and, honestly, terrible history. They argue that the idea of an AI job apocalypse is a complete fantasy. They note that while tasks will absolutely change, the whole idea of permanent, economy-wide unemployment completely ignores the fundamental laws of market demand and human ambition.
So, to make sense of these wildly different viewpoints, here is our roadmap. First, we'll explore the immediate AI threat, then examine the historical counterargument, and dive into real data projections. After that, we'll look at the fast-decaying modern skill set, introduce a solid framework for adapting, and finally, we'll explore the concept of a post-labor safety net. Let's break this all down.
Section 1. The AI job apocalypse and the 2027 threat. Look, we really need to frame the immediate reality here, because cognitive displacement isn't just some far-off future projection for 2027, it is happening right now. The data shows the very tangible pain of our current transition window. We're seeing targeted displacement with 14,000 corporate roles cut at Amazon, 1,750 at Workday, and a massive 50% drop in regional entry-level white-collar roles. Early-stage agentic and generative AI models are actively taking over those less complex repetitive tasks. This creates a highly volatile period for heavily exposed roles, especially things like clerical work and computer programming.
Moving on to Section 2, the historical counterargument. Why panic isn't exactly a news story. If we look back in time, every major technological shift, from steam power to electricity to the internet, has caused this initial wave of anxiety about mass job destruction. And you know, this fear is deeply rooted in what's called the lump of labor fallacy. It's the false economic assumption that there's just a fixed, finite amount of work to be done in the world. And this brilliantly illustrates the Javin's paradox. Simply put, when a powerful new tool makes things cheaper and faster to produce, like cognition in the case of AI, we don't just stop working. Instead, quality rises, we invent entirely new products, and overall demand actually goes up. Human wants and needs are simply not fixed.
Let's ground this abstract economic theory with a really relatable historical example. When software like Excel and VisiCalc was first introduced, computational technology ended up eliminating roughly 1 million bookkeeper jobs. Now, if you just stop the story right there, it looks like an absolute apocalypse. But that new efficiency actually expanded the entire financial industry, ultimately creating 1.5 million brand new financial analyst jobs. The technology essentially enlarged the pie. So we have to ask, how does this historical lesson apply to our modern AI projections?
Well, that brings us to Section 3, the real data projections, sizing up the transition.
It is time to look at the hard numbers. According to the World Economic Forum's projections for 2030, we see an estimated 92 million jobs displaced by AI. Make no mistake, that is a staggering transition that is going to cause real friction. However, look at the projected offset, 170 million new roles created. That yields a net positive of 78 million new jobs globally. The data really supports the historical precedent here. Technology ultimately expands the economy, even as it displaces very specific tasks.
That being said, that transition risk is definitely not evenly distributed across the globe. According to the IMF, 60% of jobs in advanced economies are exposed to AI, compared to a 40% global average and just 26% in low-income countries. Because knowledge work and cognitive tasks are so heavily concentrated in high-income nations, the 2026 to 2028 window represents a highly volatile adjustment period specifically for advanced economies.
Section 4. The fast-decaying skill set. The death of the 5-year plan.
Let's shift away from macroeconomics for a second and talk about you, the individual worker.
The sheer speed of AI means the absolute death of the traditional long-term career plan. Think about old career strategies. The old model was the 5-year plan, right? You learn a specific skill, get certified, and advance predictably over a decade. But today, skill demands are changing 66% faster in AI-exposed roles. So the new model is what we call the 5-month sprint. You iterate, ship work, test the market, and repeat. I know, it sounds exhausting, honestly, but it's crucial. You simply cannot plan a 5-year path for an AI agent architect, because that job literally didn't exist 3 years ago.
In fact, over 60% of workers globally will now be required to upskill or reskill on a continuous basis just to survive and remain competitive in this new market. Your current skills? Yeah, they will not carry you through the next 5 years unchanged.
Section 5. The Leader's Skilling Framework, a playbook for the future. So what does this all mean, and how do we actually adapt? Now, what's really interesting about this framework from Michigan Ross, the Leader's Framework for AI Empowerment, is how it breaks down the key pillars essential for the future workforce. Notice how literacy, enablement, and ethics form the absolute foundation here. It perfectly shows that surviving the AI transition isn't strictly about becoming a computer scientist or a coder. It's about building a foundational understanding of AI literacy so you can use and interact with these models responsibly and effectively in literally any industry. Pulling directly from that framework, here are the essential adaptation strategies. The workforce requires continuous employer-sponsored learning and internships for hands-on practice. Adapting means transitioning from doing every single activity yourself to a model of human-AI collaboration where you focus on the big-picture outcomes. And as middle management evolves, workers aren't just leading humans anymore. They are managing teams of symbiotic agentic subordinates. In other words, you are going to be the boss of several AI coworkers. Finally, we absolutely cannot ignore the need for mental health support as workers navigate the inevitable anxiety of this economic insecurity.
Which brings us to our final section, a post-labor safety net, adapting to the great decoupling.
Let's zoom back out to the societal level for a minute. What actually happens to those caught in the friction of this massive labor decoupling? As AI handles more complex operations 24/7 without a break, the traditional labor for income contract faces a severe stress test. Enter Universal Basic Services, or UBS. By 2026, the conversation has really shifted. Creating safety nets, things like providing free high-speed internet, automated transit, and AI-led healthcare, is no longer viewed as just some radical dream. It is increasingly seen as a mathematical necessity driven by the massive surge in AI productivity. We are witnessing the drafting of a brand new socioeconomic contract. To fund the future without stifling the very technological innovation that makes it possible, several hybrid policies are being piloted right now. These include AI-specific unemployment insurance, portable benefits specifically designed for the massive gig economy, and specialized taxes on AI-generated productivity. There is even exploration of something called participation income, a system that essentially pays humans for the social, creative, and community contributions that algorithms simply cannot perform. Think community organizing, local volunteering, or elder care.
This leaves us staring at a profoundly fascinating horizon. Are we prepared to decouple human productivity from human survival? In a world where AI expands the economy by handling all our cognitive heavy lifting, wealth may no longer be about hoarding capital. It might instead be about leveraging automation to buy back human time. I leave you to ponder your own role in that future and what you will do with the time AI gives back to you. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.